Welcome to Health Reform 2.0, the only place on the internet for people with a curious mind and a desire for a better healthcare system. Here we take you on a journey of our current quagmire, tell you where it came from and why the government can't fix it. Along the way, we'll tell you some history, bust a few big myths, tell you a few stories, and give you an idea how we can work together and get the healthcare system we want. Let's get started. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Health Reform 2.0. I'm your host, Tom Loker, and we are here because we are the podcast for people with a curious mind and a desire for a better healthcare system. As usual, I'm joined by my co-host, Tim Henning. Tim has been traveling around for the past 10 or 12 days since the last time we were together. So let me welcome Tim to the show. And Tim, where the hell have you been?
Hey, well, I've been everywhere. You know me, I never stay any place very long. But we just got back from San Diego. We had a great weekend down there for Cinco de Mayo. They really know how to celebrate Cinco de Mayo in San Diego. And we got to do a lot of other fun things while we were there. We're back yesterday and then off to the mountains tomorrow. So I'll be again, scurrying around on the road. You have to track me down.
Are you going to be back at the ranch? You going to fall off a ladder again?
I'm not going to fall off a ladder again. I said I fell off that ladder and I figured I was going to be needing some health care. Fortunately, I'm okay, but I can tell you it hurt.
They have cheap labor running around out here that you can do some of that stuff.
Yeah, it was really a stupid thing I did. So
yeah,
I'm not doing that again. Anyway, doing well, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having us over.
Well, I'm glad that when you fell off the ladder, it was minor damage, and I'm glad you're here with me today. Why don't you tell the audience we kind of have a special show today. This is episode number 3, and it's a little bit of a special episode. Why don't you tell people what we're going to be talking about and who our guest today is?
Great. Well, this is going to be a very special show because we're very honored today and blessed to have Henry M. Kaiser with us, the grandson of Henry J. Kaiser. And we've talked a lot about Kaiser in our previous episodes. We talked about Henry J., and the man of principle, who developed a long-standing, legacy through the Kaiser Permanente hospital organization and its other organizations. So we're very honored to have Henry M. Kaiser with us today to give us a little bit more perspective. So with that, welcome, Dr. Kaiser.
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you.
Well, I want to say thank you for joining us, Henry. Henry has been a friend of mine for many, many years. I don't say this often about people. I tend to be a little critical of people from time to time. But
really?
Yeah, you might say a little bit. But Henry is one of the few people in life that I have known that I am comfortable to say he has one of the finest characters of any person that I know. To a great extent, I find Henry to be a clone of his grandfather. What I gather from Henry's grandfather's history and what I've learned of him as I've studied him in healthcare, I find that he was a singularly well-qualified candidate and had a very strong character and really lived up to a series of rules and ideals that he lived his whole life. And I find that Henry M. does the same thing. Henry M., my friend, has his undergrad in psychology. He has an MBA from Stanford, and he is a PhD in clinical psychology. Henry M. served for many years in Kaiser Industries. He was a board member of both the Kaiser Family Foundation and was also on the board for years of the Kaiser Hospital and Health Plan. He was recently invited to Indonesia to consult on their attempts to improve their own healthcare system. And as a result of that, Henry is clearly one of the people that understands a lot of the history of Kaiser. He has lived the Kaiser health side and the Kaiser industry side, so he can speak to his grandfather and the value that those industries have brought to America. And with that, Henry, I'm going to ask you the first couple of questions before I turn it over to Tim. And I think my first question is, tell us a little bit about your grandfather. What do you remember about him and what he stood for?
Well, I remember him as a person who wasn't a typical archetypal granddad who sat his grandson down on his knee and told stories or took him fishing. Granddad was always a force, a serious character, had a sense of stature and gravitas. Even a young person could see that. And so you knew that you were in the presence of something really impressive. And I didn't know him very well. We didn't live close to where he lived for most of my life. I actually only had one time where I was in a room with him alone and had a conversation. And that was shortly before he passed. So I didn't know him well, but I knew him as a man who inspired a great many people. And I admired what he achieved and was very aware that there was a legacy there to try and honor and live up to.
Well, from your perspective, Henry, your grandfather accomplished a lot in his life, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But he was a uniquely qualified man in many industries, made an impact clearly in many industries. But from your perspective, what do you think was his most impactful accomplishment of his life?
Well, clearly it was the establishment of Kaiser Permanente. His quote in several books that recount his history is that he felt he would be remembered for his hospitals, not his industrial companies. I would change that. I think he is today remembered because it's not just the hospitals, it is the form of organization of a healthcare delivery system known as Kaiser Permanente today. That's the real innovation. And he is today celebrated for that. What he and Dr. Sidney Garfield started together as co-founders is really the innovation that the world remembers of Henry J.
So, Henry, I wanted to go back and a couple things that come to mind for me is you served on the board of the Kaiser Family Foundation, the Kaiser Hospital and Health Plans. You described Kaiser as an organization of excellence, and in the previous conversation, we talked a little bit about how it operates in more of an urban area. So its particular program and health plan is specific to certain areas and to certain needs. I've dealt with many, many large IDNs and still do, and they try to be everything to everybody. That doesn't work, in my personal opinion, and at least from my experience. So given your experience on the board of directors and, of course, your history with Kaiser, can you tell us a little bit more about the Kaiser way?
The values that Henry J. and my father and Sidney Garfield and then management throughout the companies have stuck by has been one where values are important, where hubris is not respected and achievement is respected. And honesty and integrity are really important elements of running a business. The companies generally have been pro-labor. We have been very ethical throughout our dealings. And that has led to an ability to relate in healthcare to our physician partners in a very unique way, where we don't try to be businessmen who tell physicians what to do or how much care they should give or what quality standards we want to live to with some trade-off for profitability. We don't do that. We've always felt that the key issue was quality of service first, prevention to keep people healthy, and outreach to give a quality of health care that was as good for the average working man as it was for people of wealth. To do that in the environment where we serve our communities and certainly with our industrial workforce. We've never felt that we were industrialized medicine. We always felt we were community medicine. And we are not often perceived that way, but that's the way we see ourselves.
Yeah, I see it that way too. I'm close to it because my wife's mother, who's 91, lives with us, and she's a Kaiser member. And we've had some recent non-critical occurrences to use the services, and they have been superb. Typically, doctors aren't paid to listen, and they're not paid to have long conversations. What I find with the Kaiser physicians that we worked with is they had plenty of time. They had her best interest in mind, and they went out of their way to over-communicate and spend time with us. I don't see that in other healthcare organizations and other physician groups that I deal with. So this is what kind of makes Kaiser special to me. What do you think makes Kaiser so special to many people that you just, maybe some of the things you've just talked to?
I think one of the most under-emphasized aspects of the program is integration. The fact that all of the services you need are integrated seamlessly in an integrated way means the patient experience, both as to service and as to quality and as to outcome, is much better than if a person is left on their own to navigate the disintegrated pieces of the healthcare system, the labs, the pharmacy, the radiologist, the aftercare, the various elements that are available in the market in a variety of different organizational forms, but in Kaiser, they are combined. And one of the things that I most often do here is the relief people have when they aren't wrestling with a claims-based intermediary when it comes time to pay for the services they have. I think people are surprised at the seamlessness and the ease of use, and that the quality of care that they experience is excellent. So an emphasis on prevention and an emphasis on quality of care and service are the hallmarks of the organization, and everyone is proud of that legacy. And Henry J. and Sidney Garfield brought those values very early on, even out in the rugged conditions of the early construction projects like Coulee and Bonneville Dam, where they had to have good care or they weren't going to be able to attract the workers.
Right. But that kind of really brings it to life for me because I couldn't agree more. The seamlessness, the integration. I think one of the misnomers when people talk about IDNs is the I in IDN. Most of these IDNs aren't integrated at all. And, I can speak to a number of them. I think they're trying to make efforts to improve that, but Kaiser is a clear model of that, and they've been at it for some time. In fact, I think Kaiser was one of the very first organizations that fully embraced and implemented the electronic medical record system. In fact, I think they were the benchmark for Epic in the development of that program. So what do you see some of the challenges are facing Kaiser going forward?
Well, both the challenge and one of the best factors that we have had dealt with over the decades is competition. Competition has made us better, more aware of market interests, more aware of defining what we do and what we do that's best and what we're not. We're not a teaching hospital. We aren't rural care. We aren't necessarily always the cutting edge on technology. We are the cutting edge on quality. The shiny new thing, something our systems look at, but always adopt first before others, unless it's a true quality advance. That's different. Then we're right there, Johnny on the spot. So we're very alert and very aware because we are a learning organization. I know that's just a soundbite, who knows what it means, but I have seen it in practice throughout the time I've been on the Kaiser, was on the Kaiser board, and as I traveled around the regions and talked to physician leaders, administrative leaders, and the planning process we use to develop the program, develop our budgets, and develop our programs.
And Henry, one of the most important things to me today, having worked, as you know, quite a bit with startups and young entrepreneurs, is how easily the term entrepreneur gets thrown around, particularly in Silicon Valley. I think your grandfather is probably one of the real true examples of a true entrepreneur. He clearly was one of the most accomplished entrepreneurs in the entire history of America. There have been people like Thomas Edison who may have had more patents and may have come up with a number of other things. There was Henry Ford, who was accomplished in the automobile space, but few, if any, have become so accomplished in so many areas that your grandfather did. Can you talk to us a little bit about the Kaiser family, Kaiser Industries, and give us an idea of the breadth of things that your grandfather was involved in? And then after that, we have one more question, I think, and one more area to discuss. But it's really fascinating, and we've only touched on the surface of some of the things that Kaiser Industries has done in the last couple of episodes. So can you expand that a little bit?
Henry Day entered the scene spanning two eras in our country's economy, one being the age of construction, the development of power in the West, and the other being the age of manufacturing and production, starting with the war years, World War II, with the shipyard activity. And the need to have steel for ships led to further industrialization. The construction projects certainly grew out of Henry Day's sand and gravel business, led to cement. After the war, having built the dams in the Northwest that created so much power, we understood that how much power needs a customer. That led to the aluminum business. So Henry Day continually saw challenges in the form of what he called opportunities in workflows. And he saw needs and he filled them. In an age of entrepreneurial activity where he responded to needs first in construction and then in manufacturing. Later, he began to move into other areas. So moving to Hawaii, he got into broadcasting and he got into real estate with Hawaii Kai. So wherever he went, he saw an opportunity and then said, oh, what am I going to do about it? And he gave a lot of inspiration to an opportunity to a lot of people to help him realize his dreams. So he did those things. He even had some businesses that almost got us into a transition in the age of technology, like Kaiser Aerospace and electronics. It didn't take. The entrepreneurial activities did not extend to the age of information. In healthcare, that's a little different. The need to attract workers to the construction sites and the shipyards then did create a need to develop a quality of healthcare that was not generally available in the U.S. in those times, and certainly wasn't available to the common working man. And in order to attract workers to those environments and work sites, it had to be good quality, and it had to be efficient, and it had to have services from physicians who believed in what we were doing and agreed with our approach to developing a medical platform which gave a multi-specialty practice and ability to deliver the kind of quality they believed in. Right. So Henry Day's partnership with Sidney Garfield produced that innovation, and that has survived today, moving from the construction sites in very remote areas to an urban environment and into an age when there is increasing government involvement, increasing safety net activity, and increasing competition, if you will, for covered lives in the marketplace. Kaiser's dedication to prevention, integration, seamless team care, efficiency of operation have been principles that have allowed that organization to prosper and persevere in a changing environment.
Talk to me a little bit about the Kaiser family. You and I have been friends for a long time, and you know, I know, and because you've shared with me that the family has had a number of challenges, as is any family that becomes the inheritor of such a heritage. There was tremendous amount of responsibilities. It was a large-scale series of business operations, including automobile manufacturing and a number of other things. Something that I think my grandfather, George Wigington, and your grandfather shared and probably ran into each other in the automobile business. But relative to the size and scope of the heritage of your grandfather and the responsibilities, come on, you want to talk for a minute about the Kaiser family and the challenges that heritage left for them, because it was by no means an easy burden, money aside.
Right. Well, Henry J. gave my father, Edgar F. Kaiser, the opportunity to prove himself in management. First of all, on the construction project, and then as general manager of the 3 shipyards in Portland, Oregon. My father then had the unfortunate opportunity from my grandfather to go back and gee, Edgar, see what you can do with Kaiser Fraser, the automotive operation. And it was undercapitalized from the start. And in the end, couldn't develop an opportunity to successfully compete against Ford, GM, and Chrysler. So when that operation had to be shut down, instead of simply abandoning the Kaiser Fraser shareholders, what was done is 2 things. First of all, over a period of about 10 years, the assets were recycled into businesses in Argentina and Brazil. And secondly, the Kaiser Industries itself was reorganized into a holding company. And Kaiser Fraser shares and other shareholders wound up with equity interest in the holding company and included Kaiser Cement, Kaiser Steel, Kaiser Aluminum, and some wholly owned subsidiaries like Kaiser Engineers. So over the years, shareholder equity was honored and preserved. In the meantime, the healthcare activity was kept separate for tax reasons, but also because a nonprofit operation emphasized the interest of offering care and services, not because it's a money-making business, but because it's an essential service that people need. And it also happened to also be an effective business structure for a relationship with the physician partners. It created an alignment of objectives and values that otherwise my grandfather didn't see was possible. That again stems out of the very unique relationship that Henry J. had with Sidney Garfield. So those parallel paths that the industries took and the healthcare took wound up in different destinations. Today, the finances of the organization have taken the result that the fortune Henry J. made wound up in the Kaiser Family Foundation and in Kaiser Permanente, and not in the checkbooks of the family members, such as I and my older and younger brother and my sisters. Another member of the family, Henry J. Jr., has one son, Henry III, who's a professional musician, and did serve on the Kaiser Family Foundation board for a while. My daughter Katie serves on the Kaiser Family Foundation board now. and my younger brother Kim serves on the Kaiser Hospice and Health Plan Board. So I don't know how much longer that legacy will continue, but it's still there today through formal relationships and through my informal relationships and friendships throughout Kaiser Permanente.
So, Henry, we have about 5 minutes left. A couple of questions. You talked a little bit about the Kaiser model. Recently, I did a lot of work up in Seattle, and I noticed that Kaiser developed a relationship with Group Health. I don't know if it was a merger or an acquisition or exactly what it was. And I know they've expanded in some areas. What's your crystal ball? Do you see Kaiser expanding through a lot more of this M&A activity we see throughout the medical industry with these recent mergers of these IDNs, or do you see them being more thoughtful and mindful of their growth opportunities?
First of all, I don't speak for Kaiser Permanente. I want to be sure that listeners understand that. And I'm not necessarily current on their current thinking and plans and what they have in mind. So my comment historically was this. We have learned from experience that we're not going to be successful unless certain conditions are in place. First and foremost is the effective operation of a multi-specialty independent physician group that shares our values and vision for how healthcare ought to be practiced. That's critical. If we don't have that, we're not successful. And we, in fact, had to pull out of a couple of regions. The Northeast in Texas. We started in Cleveland, Ohio, originally because there was a medical group that brought us in. And finally, in that case, we weren't able to be number one or number two in the market. If you're number three or number four in a market, you're going to have a difficult time having critical mass in order to deliver the quality you need. Even in the Northwest, I would say what wasn't technically an acquisition of Group Health, discussions to make that happen were going on since the mid-1980s. And it didn't work out on the business side, but it did work. And that a Permanente medical group actually was in operation throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. And eventually the circumstances evolved in such a way that an acquisition could take place, but it hinged again on the fact that there was a Permanente medical group already functioning there. So clearly, where there is a physician partnership group that we're comfortable with and they're comfortable with us, that's a place where we might go if we can be a significant force in the market. Expansion alone isn't necessarily a key element of it, but we do look for it as long as we can earn our cost of capital and provide quality and find partners where prevention is going to be an essential element of the program. We are beginning to move into what might have one time been called rural areas, but that's changing in our country. For example, here in Oregon, we're now involved in Eugene and have plans for other areas of the state, I'm told. Those normally would be areas outside where we would go. Certainly the footprint of Group Health in Washington State takes us into areas that are separate and apart from the major metropolitan areas. So we will always evolve to meet market conditions and the market opportunities. And again, where we believe we can be effective, even if we don't have a hospital. We don't own a hospital in Washington, D.C. or Atlanta or Denver, Colorado. But what makes it work is, can we be a significant force in the marketplace? Do we have strong physician partnership opportunities?
Well, Henry and Tim, we're coming to the conclusion of this episode, and I want to say that one of the reasons for this episode is that as Tim and I were going through the history of healthcare and preparing this series on history and focusing on the key elements of our history that helped build the healthcare system we had today, it was clear that Kaiser, both your grandfather and the industry and Kaiser Industries, and particularly Kaiser Permanente, have created a unique opportunity in terms of the provision of care to people as time has gone on. And it is such an impactful thing. We wanted to make sure that we brought up more information, and we're really happy to have you join us with your unique perspective. The other point to that was that as we look around today and we look at where healthcare is going, the role of Kaiser going forward is a key role, no matter what we decide as a fundamental system. If we develop it into the two-prong approach of life care and quality of life care, clearly Kaiser has a role in that system. And further, we think that system in the long run might benefit Kaiser. We may do another show with you in the future as we get closer and closer to that discussion around the new future of where we're going, and get your take on it as well. You're fully aware of it. We've been talking about it for 7 or 8 years at this point, I think. But we really appreciate your coming on board with us to have this discussion. And do you have anything that you want to add to this before we say goodbye to the audience?
Well, I'll look forward to the next discussion of the ideas you have put forward. It's been a difficult time to get innovative ideas to hearing. Certainly, some of the points that you're advocating in 2.0, I've tried hard to get legislative interest in those proposals here in Oregon and in Washington. I've tried hard to get the press to publish very brief synopses of what those ideas are. And I'm not able to help those ideas get the visibility I think they should have. So if the podcast we're going to have next time, or whenever you bring me back on, helps to do that, I'm supportive of it, because I think ideas like yours need to be in circulation, and they need to be heard, not just because those ideas may help somebody win an election or get a vote, because it's the right thing to do for medicine. As long as we keep our eye on that ball, we're headed in the right direction, and every opportunity we can to get these ideas out is an important idea that an important process that I'm proud to be part of. So thanks for the opportunity.
Jim, do you have any final comments?
No, I really appreciate your time. It was an honor and pleasure. I look forward to spending more time with you.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to a conclusion of our episode number 3. And I want to thank Henry and Tim for joining us again. We look forward to seeing you again in the future. So we'll say goodbye for now and see you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Have a good day.
You've been listening to Health Reform 2.0 with your hosts Tom Locher and Tim Henning. We hope you found the topics interesting, that we answered a few questions, that you laughed a bit and were entertained. Please feel free to invite your friends to join the discussion, and remember, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Send us your questions to info@hr-20.com. We hope to see you again next time.